What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the National League East Outlook and the 5 targets, 5 needs for each team in the National League. We're talking Mets, Braves, as if you need a rundown of the National League East teams. Cut it, Jim. You guys know who's in the National League East. We're going to do this thing, and I hope you guys enjoy. Comment below. Let me know what you think. Hit that like if you want baseball back. If you're a fan of a National League East team, hit that like. And, of course, the comments are welcome. Comment below. Let me know who you want your team to target. If you are a Mets fan, if you are a Phillies fan, there's been a lot of chat in the chat about what the fans want. I know Phillies fans, you want your team to do something. I like what you did with Corey Knebel, but I know you want more. I know Mets fans, you want more. You don't want to stop at Scherzer. You don't want to stop at the Friday after Thanksgiving run. So I know you want more. So we're going to dive into what the targets should be and who they should go after. And I want to thank everybody that is with me live, because we are live for our customary 11 a.m. Monday. We've been pretty consistent with that. Some of the other times of other days of the week have changed, but we are live Monday, so I appreciate everybody that is with me live. Obey, Lionheart, Joe, Mike, Rachel, Damian, Steve, Lionheart, Derek. Again, everybody that is. There's more live with me now, but those are at least, there's the activity in the chat. So thank you all that is live. Again, we're going to dive into the National League East. Remember, I feel like I need to say this every time. These are not the 5 players that I think these teams are going to get. These are the 5 targets. So you will see duplication. You will see a player on the Mets page, and you'll see the same player on the Phillies page. Obviously, they're not getting both of those players. They're not each going to get them. But what we are doing is we are highlighting who the targets should be, who they should go and get, what they should be focused on. So we're going to dive into that. I hope everybody had a great Christmas for those who celebrate Christmas over the weekend. And now we sort of shift our focus towards New Year's. We are going to get a little bit more out of the holiday decorations today. You can see the set, the screen, we're all holidayed up. And we're going to keep that going. I think throughout the week we'll do that. Tomorrow or Wednesday, I will make the announcement. We'll do the National League Central. Then we will do the National League West. Those will be the other live streams this week. And I have at least one sort of 2021 wrap up or some kind of video to kind of highlight the year. Rachel, I know it's been 2 years since the Ryu signing. Listen, that was a good move for the Jays. It was them sort of announcing that they had plans to compete soon, and here they are. So let's get into this thing. Let me get the National League East screens up. Let's get this going. We are going to start with the Washington Nationals. Let me get it up. Here's their situation. Steven Strasburg, if healthy, is your guy. Steven Strasburg is the guy at the top of the rotation. Again, he's got to be healthy. Then Patrick Corbin, coming off a bad year, but you hope there's a bounce back there. Plus Joe Ross. You probably want to switch Gray. Gray is the piece that was acquired at with the trade with the Dodgers. So he's actually, in a perfect world, he's your 3. But Joe Ross is the veteran. He's got more experience. So we'll go Ross at 3, Gray at 4, and then Feedy at 5. Certainly, they have some prospects who are on the horizon. Maybe some other players you could slide into that number 5 spot. The number 5 spot could be a bunch of different guys. But we'll start with Feedy. The closer is kind of a question mark. Will Harris is the closer at this point, and he's not listed as the closer on the depth chart. And maybe there was another pitcher that was closing out games towards the end of the year. But we're going to go and put Harris as a closer. Again, a lot of times this is my opinion, not necessarily what is listed on the depth chart, because I think that could change. But I think today, if the season started, Harris would be a closer. Again, and I can't forget, 65 and 97 last for the Nats last year. The catcher situation, you've got Keibert Ruiz and Riley Adams, both new additions. Josh Bell, does he make it through the whole year? I think that'll depend on how well the Nats are doing. Then you've got Hernandez, Cesar Hernandez was signed, was one of their right before the deadline kind of moves. Also Garcia and Escobar. Those Garcia, Escobar, Hernandez will sort of, I think, be your 3-man middle infield situation. We do know they did also sign D. Gordon and Michael Franco to minor league deals. So they could fit in, but in a perfect world, you got to see what you have from Garcia. Hernandez should play more over Escobar, but we'll see. And then the outfield, Soto, Robles, and Hernandez with Stevenson and Thomas sliding into the DH. Stevenson and Thomas, not true DHs, but you know what? They've got 5 guys for that outfield spot. Maybe Hernandez is your DH. Maybe they go out and get a DH. We're going to talk about that with their needs. So the 5 needs, the targets that the Nats should be on. Right off the bat, it should be Kyle Schwarber if they want to try to compete next year. There has been talk that Schwarber and Davey Martinez built a nice relationship, and there's the possibility of him going back to Washington is not ruled out. So I think if they want to have a shot to compete, they want to try to surprise some people. One of the things that they could do and should do is go out there and get Kyle Schwarber. We looked at that bullpen, that closer situation. Is Will Harris a true closer? I don't know, but I do think there are a couple players that are out there that could be a closer, and Ryan Tepera comes to mind. Ryan Tepera is a totally different pitcher than he was with the Blue Jays. He had a great year last year. Tepera at this point is one of the best relievers that's available. Has not been a steady closer through his career. Hasn't been given the opportunity. But there are some teams that he could go to and he could earn that opportunity. Washington is one of those teams where I could see Tepera going and earning the closer role. Now, if they want to give the closer job to somebody who has closed, has experience, listen, they're not going to get in on Kenley Jansen. They're not going to trade for Craig Kimbrell. That's not right now the mode for the Nats. But they could get Richard Rodriguez. Rodriguez was one of the most highly sought-after closers, relievers at the deadline last year. Went to Atlanta, did not do that well. He's a free agent now, sort of a forgotten guy in many instances. He could be the closer for the Washington Nationals. Fix the back, strengthen. I don't want to say necessarily fix, but strengthen the back end of that bullpen. I also think they could use some veteran leadership. We talked about that outfield. You're comfortable with Soto. You're comfortable with Robles. After that, do you feel comfortable with Hernandez? Do you feel comfortable with Thomas? Do you feel comfortable with Stevenson? I don't know. So get some veteran experience out there. Tommy Pham, recency bias would tell you Tommy Pham sucks, right? That's what you would say right now about Tommy Pham. But he could still put together a nice season for somebody. So I like Tommy Pham as an addition for the Nats and goes out there and can have a nice season. And if you're also, again, if you don't want to go Pham, again, you look at what we're looking at here. We're looking at not the mega contract. Schwarber would be a big contract, but we're not looking at mega contract guys, right? Another one, I think Corey Dickerson could fit in there. Corey Dickerson, a good player, could be a good bat, veteran leadership for the Washington Nationals. There's really no big splashes outside of Schwarber. What they're going to be doing is they're going to be trying to add depth. They're going to try to improve the team. So there are my feelings on what the Nats could do for their needs. Let's move on to the next team. Let's move on to Miami. I really like this Miami team. I might be early to the party. I don't care. I am a fan of what Miami is doing. The rotation, that pitching, I love it. We don't even have everybody here, right? We've got Alcantara, who just signed the extension. We've got Pablo Lopez. Then you've got Trevor Rogers, Sixto Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo. We could go on. It doesn't stop there. You've also got Eliezer Hernandez, Edward Cabrera. I love Edward Cabrera. And right now, he kind of doesn't fit, which is why you hear the rumors of, before the extension, you heard the Alcantara rumors, you hear the rumors of Pablo Lopez, because, those two are the pitchers that have been around the longest, so the money's going to have to start to go out there, and they've got some other good pitching options that they could lean on. If they could trade Lopez at this point and improve the team, they're good. Closer situation leaves a little to be desired. Dylan Floro, again, I'm sure there's probably some other names Miami fans would want to insert there, but we're going to go with Floro in this case. I think there's still a possibility for an upgrade. So many pitching prospects. That is right, Emmanuel. All right, Lineup. They go out and get Stallings. The catching market was thin. They get the upgrade. I like Stallings there at catcher. First base, Aguilar and Diaz. I want to say I was corrected on how to say Aguilar's name in the comments. So if the person who put that out there is watching, I saw you. I've always called him Aguilar. I don't know why. But Aguilar, I was corrected on that. Listen, you guys can correct me on things. I will take note. All right, so Aguilar and Diaz. Diaz was a top 10 prospect in their organization just a year ago, so I think he'll get some run. Could also slide into the DH. If Aguilar goes to DH, Diaz could be first base. Second base, Chisholm. Shortstop, Rojas. Birdie's going to figure in somehow. Third base, Anderson and Wendell. Outfield, you could have Wendell, Sanchez, and Garcia. DH, Cooper, De La Cruz. De La Cruz could also fit into the outfield. The point here with the lineup is a lot of versatility. A lot of players you could put in a lot of different spots. Chisholm could play second or short. Rojas can play short or third. Birdie can play almost any infield position and outfield. Anderson can play outfield and third. Wendell can play almost any infield position and outfield. I mean, the versatility. Spring training for the Marlins is going to be very interesting to watch, okay? If there's a top 5 spring training team to watch, it's going to be Miami. Let's go to the needs, though. What are the 5 targets? What are the 5 needs Miami needs to be focusing on? They're out there focusing on the outfield, so let's start with the outfield. Where should they be focusing? If they've got the money to do it, Nick Castellanos needs to be at the top of the list if they have the money to do it. Now, they'll still be in a situation where they don't really have a center fielder. They're talking about playing Garcia. They feel comfortable putting Avisail Garcia in center field, so they would need to do that in this situation. But in my opinion, Nick Castellanos in the middle of that lineup would be incredible. If they don't want to spend the crazy money, because I do think Castellanos is a 9-figure player, probably an 8-figure player, would be Michael Conforto. And there's already been talk about Conforto in Miami. That was put out there that Miami, their camp had been in touch with Conforto's camp. So, and Obey likes De La Cruz in center field. I could see that. Or, I might have a center field option in a minute. We'll see. But anyway, Conforto's a good defensive player. You could put him out there. He won't cost as much as as Castellanos. And maybe you can get Conforto on a shorter deal, right? Castellanos is going to want probably this to be his last big contract. Conforto, still in his 20s, he could be looking at a 3 or 4 year stop here in Miami and then go out there and get another big deal after a couple years. So Conforto is a good target. He makes sense for their outfield. And it was talked that Lorenzo Cain was bantered out there, was out there as a potential trade piece with the Yankees for Luke Voit. So if Miami needs a center fielder, number 1, and number 2, if Milwaukee is interested in trading Lorenzo Cain, now maybe they were only interested in trading Lorenzo Cain if they were getting Luke Voit back. So what Miami would send to Milwaukee, we could talk about that in a different stream. But you have Lorenzo Cain. If he is a center fielder that is available on the trade market, I would like Miami to get in the mix. And again, there's duplication here because these are not my predictions on who the teams are going to get. This is who they should be targeting, where they have the areas of need. In the back of that bullpen is an area of need. Ryan Tepera. I would love to see Ryan Tepera get an option, get a shot at closing with how well he's pitched the last couple of years. Some of you might disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. It's okay to disagree, but I think Tepera, I like the opportunity that I think he would hold together just fine in the closer role. I like Tepera. Now, whether he's the closer or whether he is just solidifying the bullpen, Miami needs to do both. They need to solidify the bullpen. They need to get a closer. And this next guy, again, just along the same lines, solidify that bullpen. Colin McHugh. One of the two, right? Tepera or McHugh. Not necessarily McHugh to close, though maybe he could do it too. Just solidify the bullpen. The rotation, you should get at least 6 solid innings most of the time from the rotation. So you got to have 3 good innings ready to go. And if you have one of these guys, you got one of those innings squared away. So go solidify the bullpen, Miami. Good morning, Jack. How are you? We are going to get to the Mets. We got one team, and then it is Mets talk time. Let's get to the next team, and it's the Philadelphia Phillies. A lot of Phillies fans want these guys to do more, and I don't think you need to do a whole lot, but there is certainly an impact player specifically in that outfield that needs to happen, okay? A whole lot, I guess I should say, in terms of number of deals. There's maybe one big deal out there to go and do. The rotation. Wheeler established himself as one of the best. This team was 82-80 last year. They had the MVP, Bryce Harper. The pitching, Wheeler, Nola. Nola could use a bounce-back season. They went out and got Kyle Gibson. He's back. You got Zach Eflin. You got Suarez, who was good. A lot of different guys. You could, again, similar to Washington, there's probably a handful of players you could put at that number 5 spot. But we start here. Closer, I think you'd be okay if you had Corey Knebel as your closer. I think you'd be okay, Philly. Now, you could certainly make it better, the bullpen, if you go get a closer and Knebel slides into that setup role, then you have an even better bullpen. But if you started the season today with Corey Knebel as your closer, it's not the end of the world. The lineup, Real Muto catching, Hoskins at first, Segura at second, Gregorius at short. That middle infield just feels like it's getting old fast, doesn't it? Alec Baum at third. Outfield is Harper, Hasley, and Moniak. And then the DH, I have Camargo as the DH. Obviously, Camargo's not going to DH. Camargo's going to move around that infield. He was a signing right before the deadline. He might have even been a minor league signing. I can't remember. But, okay, the lineup needs some improvement, right? Moniak has not taken off. He has had sort of a failure to launch situation so far, former top pick. There needs to be some help. So let's get into what the Phillies need. Let's talk about the needs for the Phillies. He was the number 1 for the Marlins. He's the number 1 for the Phillies. Nick Castellanos. Nick Castellanos makes all the sense in the world for the Phillies. You have the lefty pop with Bryce Harper. Counter that with the righty pop of Nick Castellanos. I think that should be the goal. If you're Philly, that should be the goal. The lineup starts to work. The outfield starts to work if you have Nick Castellanos out there. So we have Castellanos as a number 1 target. Also, this is a team that could get in the mix for Chris Bryant with the outfield need. Chris Bryant needs to be at the top of their list. It is a need. He should be a top target. He will obviously improve that lineup. He could play in the outfield. He could play at a couple different spots. Alec Baum could be your first baseman. You could slide Baum from third to first. You could put Hoskins at DH because I know you don't love Hoskins in the field. So you could have Bryant there as a main target. Now that bullpen, again, it is a situation where it's not that bad as it is. Knebel would not be that bad, but if you had Knebel as your setup and then maybe this guy as your closer, Craig Kimbrell, I think the bullpen is even better. Don't do what you've done for the last couple of years, Phillies. Go make sure that you feel comfortable heading into the 9th inning, and I think Craig Kimbrell would do that. I know he did not pitch well when he went from the Cubs to the White Sox. It's because he wasn't closing. He needs to be closing. You have Kimbrell as your closer, and you're in good shape. So Kimbrell to be the closer. Make the trade happen. It's a 1-year thing. It's a lot of money, but it's only 1 year, and then you can move on. We talked about how that middle infield's getting old, right? That middle infield, Didi Gregorius, Gene Segura feels old. Well, they need to maybe there's an upgrade and a guy that can play multiple positions. It's a big name. I think he moves down the target list because I think the outfield is number 1 focus. We got Hasley and Moniak right now, but why not Trevor Story as a fit, as a target for Philly? I still like Story to go to Seattle, okay? If I'm picking a team, I think Story goes to Seattle, but Story should be on the short list for the Phillies if they're looking to improve that team. If Castellanos goes to the Marlins, if Chris Bryant goes to the Blue Jays, and Trevor Story is still there, the focus has to shift to Trevor Story. Trevor Story fits the need, fills a hole if they miss out on the guys earlier on the list. And this player could be 1 of 2. Okay. We're going to put Anthony Rizzo in here, and let me explain. Rizzo could go to first base. They could get Rizzo, in my opinion. I think Philly could get Rizzo and any of the other 3 bats here. I think Philly could get Rizzo. I think Philly could get Story and Rizzo. They could get Rizzo and Bryant. They could get Castellanos and Rizzo. I think they could make both players work. You have Rizzo at first base. You have Castellanos in the outfield. You move Hoskins to DH. Listen, you could make it work from a lineup thing. This team did not go out and spend the money they spent on Bryce Harper to just hang out, to finish in third place. They have to make moves now. They've got Harper. They signed Real Muto last year. Make 2 splashes. If they do that, they're probably going to live with Knebel at closer, which, again, I think you could do. I think you'll be all right. All right, so there are the Phillies. Let's get to the next team. It is the Braves. You know what? I promised you guys Mets. Let's go Mets. No, you know what? We got Braves and Mets fans here, so I want to be fair to both. Let's do Braves. We'll save the Mets for next. All right, Braves. The 88 and 73, your World Series champions. You see first base is blank. You don't like that, right, Braves fans? You got Max Fried, Ian Anderson, Morton, Soroka. Let's get rid of that for Yanoa. So you got 5 there. Do you like Husker Yanoa there at the number 5? Do you feel confident? He was hot for a while last year. You got Will Smith as your closer for 1 more year. I think you're good there. The lineup, d'Arnaud, Contreras, good. Albies at second, good. Swanson, Riley, Duvall, Pache, Acuna in the outfield, Ozuna at DH. The questions are this. What do you do at first? Do you feel good about Pache in center and the number 5 spot, right? That is what we're talking about for the Braves. So where do we go for Atlanta? The number 1 target is not even, how much time do we even need to spend on this, right? It's got to be Freeman. Number 1, get it done. Freddie Freeman. Listen, we don't need to talk about it. Everybody knows. Number 2, if you lose Freddie Freeman to the Dodgers or the Yankees or the Blue Jays or the KBO, I don't know. If you lose Freddie Freeman, obviously he's not going to the KBO. Okay, nobody comment that Jim's saying that Freeman's going to the KBO. Obviously, it's not going to happen. Olsen has to be the backup. Okay, Pache, another prospect. Somebody else, like, just make the deal work. Matt Olson has to be your target. Matt Olson would, in my opinion, might take some backlash for this, would actually be an upgrade over Freddie Freeman. Why? There is more power coming from Matt Olson. There is a younger player in Matt Olson. There is a more team-friendly financial situation going on with Matt Olson. So, in a way, Matt Olson would be an upgrade over Freddie Freeman. Now, if you are going to move on from Christian Pache, whether you don't believe he's the guy, whether you're trading him, whatever you're doing, or maybe there's something that happens where you get out of the Marcell Ozuna business somehow, they need another outfielder / DH, regardless. And I think they should try. If we're picking up, who do they bring back from that trade haul at the deadline? Soler. Soler's got to be on that list. That's who I would try to get. Jorge Soler caught fire when he went to Atlanta, and there's something good going on there. All right, the belief that the coaching staff has in him, they had him leading off. So I like Soler as a target to get back. And if you can't do the Soler thing, if he goes somewhere else, one of these guys, not both of them, one of them, Eddie Rosario, whether it's Soler or Rosario, I think they got to try to bring back one of those two. And the rotation. I don't know if you feel good about Yanoa. And even if you feel good about Yanoa, it kind of gets thin after that in terms of starting options. And you need to go into spring training with 7, maybe even 8 guys that are going to fight for a rotation spot. So why not Zach Greinke? I've been saying Greinke to the Braves for a while. I think he would fit perfectly. He's going to eat innings. He's going to get you through the regular season. And when you get to the playoffs and when you shrink that rotation to 4 guys, he will happily, at this point in his career, come out of the bullpen. So you go and you get Greinke or somebody of that somebody that has that experience, is on the back end of his career. You can slide in there. And again, we'll be happy to take a bullpen role when you get to the playoffs. All right, I teased it. We're getting there. Here we are. Mets fans, we're here. Mets fans, how the Mets went 77-85 last year is just, it's amazing. I mean, the Grom injury obviously was a big thing. Rojas lost control. The whole thing was a mess. 77-85 last year. The rotation now, you got DeGrom and Scherzer at the top. You love that. That gives you wood. You love that. You got Walker at 3, Carrasco at 4, number 5, Peterson, McGill, Yamamoto, Luke Casey. There's a lot for that number 5 spot, but those should be your top 4. And then number 5, you figure it out. Or, as we'll talk about, you get somebody else for that number 3. You go Walker, Carrasco, and then Peterson, McGill, and all those other guys are fighting it out. They're coming out of the bullpen. They're there in case there's injuries. So, which Mets coming off the last season they came off of, they kind of need to plan for it. So there's your rotation. Diaz is your closer. The lineup, you got McCann and Nito. You got Alonso, and that's not Smig, that's Smith. You've got Cano and McNeil. You got Lindor at short, Escobar, Davis for third, Nimmo, Marte, Canna in the outfield. At DH, you go Smith, you go Davis, you got Cano. There's a lot here. There are trades that the Mets need to make because there's depth is good, but they're talking about maybe trading McNeil. You trade McNeil over Cano because McNeil has got more value. Cano has less value coming off the suspension, the salary that he's got. So it's harder to trade Cano. You can get more back for McNeil. Do you trade Smith or Smith your DH? What do you do with David? There's a lot of questions for the Mets here. So let's get into the targets, the needs. Where do the Mets go? Let's start with the pitching. The fact that they've got so many assets that they could trade, and listen, there are assets that they could trade in the minors, okay? They've got 2 third basemen. They've got options, right? So let's start here. Luis Castillo would be a great get. If they can go get the Reds, have thrown out Castillo, then they reel him back, and then they throw him back out, they reel him back, they throw him out. It's ridiculous with Castillo. But if they can get Luis Castillo to be the number 3, he gives you some upside. He's in his arbitration years. DeGrom is going to be opting out most certainly next year to get a Max Scherzer type salary. At least in my opinion, I think DeGrom will opt out just to get the salary bump. I think DeGrom probably stays with the Mets, but he gets a salary bump. But if you have Castillo, then you have a pitcher that isn't costing you an arm and a leg. So I like the idea of adding to that rotation. And as it is right now, I think the trade is the best way to improve the team just because of the financial situation. They already have the number 1 payroll in all of baseball, and they haven't even doled out the arbitration figures yet. So we go with Castillo first. Now, if they are going to just spend money, and we don't care how much we spend, Carlos Rodon fits in there, right? Carlos Rodon could be the number 3. I guess the question is, Mets fans, what would you rather do? Would you rather make the trade and get Castillo, save a little bit of money, but give up a prospect or 2? Or would you rather keep the prospects and spend the money? You probably want to keep the prospects and spend the money. I think I answered my own question here. But we'll go with Rodon as the target for the number 3 spot in the rotation if you're just spending money and you're printing it and you're spending it. Let's get back to the trade front because this should be a target if we're going the trade route again. If you don't want, I think it'll cost a lot to get Castillo, but it might not cost as much to get Sean Manaea. And Sean Manaea, again, fits into that number 3 spot in the rotation. So if we're trying to save a little bit of money, we're not going crazy on cash, printing it and spending it, then we have Sean Manaea as a fit. Again, as you can tell, I feel like the Mets should prioritize that pitching spot. And again, anybody just checking in, these are not the 3 pitchers that I think the Mets are going to get. These are the pitchers they should target. I think they should get one of these guys. Castillo, Rodon, Manaea. That is where I think the Mets should go. One of those 3. Castillo will cost you a lot. Rodon shouldn't cost as much. Manaea shouldn't cost as much. And Rodon is just a free agent signing. It's he's probably a 4 or 5 year guy, about $20 to $25 million a year. That's my guess on Rodon. Again, pitching should be the number 1 focus. After that, yes, we know that the Mets, John Heyman has put it out there that the Mets are looking at bats. Okay, we do know that. And we look at the lineup situation. In my opinion, they don't need to. The Mets don't necessarily need to. Escobar is going to be awesome for you guys next year. J.D. Davis has been dragged through the mud to the point that he's underrated at this point. J.D. Davis, he might hit 275, but his on-base percentage is going to be 375. And he's got the pop potential. All right, so J.D. Davis is not bad. Jeff McNeil is not bad. Cano is the problem. Cano's who you got to get rid of, but you can't. Dom Smith, you just don't know. I mean, there's so much depth here, so what do we do? All right, if we are just, again, if we're printing it and spending it, the Mets obviously could upgrade their situation with Chris Bryant. It is out there so much, so we got to put it up here. I think it will be a target. They could upgrade the offense. Chris Bryant, if they're going to do it, is a way to do it. It's just how does it develop? Do they make a trade and then go get Bryant, or do they get Bryant and then have to make the trade? How does it develop if they do it? What do they go with? How do they make it happen? Because, again, the offense, as it is, isn't that bad. But they could certainly make it work. I think the Mets could continue to overhaul things, and Chris Bryant could be a way to go. Again, my question is this about the Mets. Sure, they're going to be in on the Bryant situation, but how far along did they get in talks before the CBA lockout? How far along were they compared to how far along were the Mariners and the Blue Jays? And will that have any standing when this lockout is lifted? Do the Blue Jays and Mariners call up and be like, hey, remember where we were before? We'll throw in another 10 mil. Let's get it done. And versus the Mets are just starting fresh. We don't know. We don't know. The Mets were really focused on the 3 deals that they gave out on that Friday, and then the Scherzer thing. The other thing about the Mets is, this is my point, just a side note, this is my whole point about where I worry about the Mets' ability to land Bryant, is they were close to re-signing Baez. If you read the stories that were out there about the Javi Baez situation, that sort of ended because of the money they doled out on that Friday, and that's where they kind of split ways. You still could have had Javi Baez and those 3 players that they signed on that Friday, but the money was one of the reasons why that sort of died out. So is that going to hurt them in getting Bryant? And that's where I get back to the question: how does it go? Do they trade for Bryant, or do they sign Bryant and then make the trade, or do they trade and then? There's so many ways this could go. Let's keep going. And the 5th piece: if the money is an issue, they need to make the trade. They make the trade for Matt Chapman. I don't think Mets fans, you'd be too disappointed if you're able to swing a trade and get Manaea and Chapman. Or maybe they're separate from each other. Maybe the Mets go get Rodon and Chapman. Maybe that's how it goes. You have one of the best defensive third basemen in Matt Chapman. He has played up to a level where he's getting MVP votes in his career. I know he's also played down to where he feels like he's striking out every other at-bat, so he might drive you a little crazy. This is why I feel like the Mets should have just brought Javi Baez back, because playing in New York, it isn't easy, right? It is not easy to play in New York, and you found with Baez that he could play in New York. Matt Chapman could come to New York, start striking out 3 times a game his first week, and get booed, and then then he's in his own head. So where do the Mets go? Again, comment below, everybody. What do you want your team to do? Whether you are a fan of the Mets, the Braves, the Nats, the Phillies, the Marlins, whoever you are a fan of, comment below. Let me know who you want your team to get, or comment in the chat. Let's do a quick recap of our targets. The Nats, our needs, they have the needs. These players could fill those needs, so these should be the targets: Schwarber, Tepera, Rodriguez, Pham, and Dickerson. Back end of the bullpen, the relationship that Schwarber apparently built with Davey Martinez and that whole situation. And you've got veteran leadership, right? Veteran leadership that can play up to a certain level and maybe get traded at the deadline. The Marlins targets: Castellanos, Conforto, Kane. That outfield, right? The outfield, and building up the bullpen because the rotation is good to go. Next up, the Phillies targets. We had Castellanos, Bryant. They basically the 4 bats there. Castellanos, Bryant, Story, and Rizzo all make sense. If you get Castellanos, that's probably it. Well, I shouldn't say that. You can get Rizzo and Castellanos. You could get Rizzo and Bryant. You could get Rizzo and Story. All right. Rizzo could come with the other three. And then, but you wouldn't see Castellanos and Bryant. You wouldn't see Castellanos and Story. You wouldn't see that. And then Kimbrel. Get that bullpen squared away. The Braves, number one obviously needs to be Freeman. Freeman, Olsen if you lose out on Freeman. And then I love the idea of them bringing back either Soler or Rosario and some more pitching options with Zach Greinke. And the Mets, Castillo, Rodon, Minaya, Bryant, and Chapman. Those are again, we're looking at what are the needs. The needs are pitching, getting that number three guy that can pitch up to a number 2 level, and impact bat. Impact bat would be a good way to go. And the Mets, here's the nice thing: you get Matt Chapman, you get that glove. The beautiful thing is that Escobar, right now we have Escobar slotted in at third, but Escobar can play in multiple positions. You can move Escobar to second. This is why if the Mets are going to make the trade, try to hold on to McNeil, because at least you can move McNeil to the outfield. If you get Chapman, you can put McNeil in the outfield. The problem is McNeil might need to be in the deal for Chapman. So the Mets are going to be a fascinating watch moving forward. What they do is going to be anybody's guess, really. Do the Mets, do they make the trade? Do they spend the money? They're already at $260 million for next year. They still have to dole out some They're going over $300 million. I mean, it is very likely, even if they don't get Bryant or they don't make the Rodon thing, they're going over $300 million. It's just how far. And when you go over, this is the question. What's the CBA? I'm sorry. What is the luxury tax? What is the penalty for going over the luxury tax? How does that impact what they do? Because if the penalty is severe, they might not want to do it. And maybe it's not severe the first time, but there's a repeater penalty this time, right, with the previous CBA. So if just the way the financial situation looks, if they go over it in 2022, they're probably going to be going over it again in 2023 based on the players we're talking about them signing. So you'd have the repeater, you'd get hit twice. It really is going to depend on the CBA. Mets fans need to watch that, because that could, and that's why you saw the Phillies were relatively quiet, the Yankees relatively quiet, the Dodgers relatively quiet with their with that flurry of moves. They were all relatively quiet because they don't want to get into a spot where, they spent the money on, Corey Seager, and then all of a sudden now they're going to go way over, and the penalty with the new CBA is huge, and that's why you saw a lot of those teams sitting tight, because they didn't know and they wanted to wait. So anyway, that is that. I appreciate everybody that's here. Good chat here. You guys are doing great. Ballcap Nation, I appreciate you. Again, make sure to hit that like if you're watching the replay, or if you are live with me, make sure to smash that like if you are a fan of a National League East team, if you just want baseball back, or if you want Ballcap Nation to grow. If that's what you guys are Ballcap Nation. If you want this thing to grow, make sure to hit that like, because that supports the channel. That is what YouTube uses when they're putting their algorithm together and promoting it basically naturally, organically, making it a recommended video, is how many people liked it. So Ballcap Nation, if you want to grow, which I want you to grow, then hit that like. All right. For those of you that are watching the replay, comment below. Let me know what you think. Again, hit that like on the way out. You made it to the end of this video. Those of you that are live with me, stay put, because we're going to talk more about the National League East. I see a lot of you with some comments. I really do. So let's see. I want to see what you guys think. So those of you that are live, stay put. Don't go anywhere. But those of you that are watching the replay, I appreciate you finding the channel, spending some time with it. You could have been doing countless other things on countless other channels. I appreciate you spending some time here. I'll add some links to some of my other off-season content. We've covered the American League already, so if you like this and you didn't catch any of the American League stuff, I'll add links to those videos here for you to check out now. And as always, thank you for watching the video.